I feel I did major improvements with the re-edited version. I probably cut out 10 minutes out of this thing. Mainly I had a big problem with the ending and how happy cutesy it was then. I'll explain that when we get there. This was fully edited at, actually this wasn't even for a class. We did this strictly for fun. In March of '89, exactly 10 years ago this month, we shot this goofy thing. This is an amazing shot, probably the hardest, most complex one we've ever done. We took this dolly around the entire salon to and fro and dealt with all these mirrors and really didn't even get seen. An amazing feat. Now Tom always got mad at me for putting credits over this shot. He's like, this shot is so complex and so cool and so obviously planned out and thought out, and you put credits over it, covering it up and distracting the viewer from what the amazing shot, seamless shot that it is. More great dolly work, being careful just out of the view of the mirror there. Pretty amazing. Andy wasn't in Escapee at all, but he's returning for this one.
How are you? Good. Good.
Hi, how you doing?
Oh, okay, I guess.
The color in the bag?
Yeah.
Okay, let me just check.
Cheesy guns. Now here's Todd. Todd's first time on screen, as well as Lloyd's. Todd was a last-minute replacement, an even more major last-minute replacement than Surge and Contamination. We had Homer, and we even shot a few scenes with Homer. And we grabbed Todd, I think, the day of shooting, and he was at work at the mall and said, "Can you please do this for us? We've got all this equipment rented." Now this is Lloyd's apartment. He actually lived in this thing for 6 months. I thought it would be a great dump for these guys to be seeking refuge. Pete's car, the Nissan. I used to love this car. Not anymore. People were mad at us right there because they peeled out. They said, "Can you guys please slow down?" Which was true. There were kids and stuff running around. Wasn't too smart. This whole sequence, of course, is saved by the music.
Okay, let me go mix it up. I'll be right back.
Okay.
There's Tom driving. We used him because I guess Todd, for some reason, couldn't be there that day. And we figured we're not really showing the driver too much, so we'll just have Tom do it. You can tell. It's his arm there in that shot a minute ago. This has always been the stupidest thing I've ever seen. How on earth are you going to open a door like that with a big knife? Ridiculous. I don't think we cared too much. And if you look closely when the door opens, you'll see my Honda Civic standing in for the Nissan that wasn't there for some who knows why reason. There's my Honda. But we did it so quick, I don't think you can tell. This shot's so chopped up. When I redid this, I left it alone and let it play it out instead of so much fast cutting. Had this camera. I always had a thing for, whenever something didn't work, we'd keep it for a prop and just destroy it inadvertently for some reason. I still do that today. It's Pete's grandmother. Passed away years later. There's something interesting about this. I just had shot Liz. Wasn't even acting. She didn't even know she was being filmed here. And after we were done, I came up with this scenario of having Andy grab the hammer, and her expression looking at him was just not even acting. It just all fit together well. Something else I would never do again is be so gross here. This blood thing. It was crab meat, caviar, and ketchup, and I think it was Pete who just threw it against the mirror. We had a countdown. It's gross. And I was gross back then. It's a real sort of Martin Scorsese gross out shot. And I'm not into that. I don't like that kind of stuff. And back then we were like into makeup and weird stuff. Now he really is pulling Beth's hair, obviously. I cut this silly thing out of the new version. Lloyd's gotta give him credit for that. He's a realist. He did this whole thing very, very violently. I'm sure he was scary to the girls. Notice how dark it was when they came out, as this was all shot at different times. There's Tom sitting in for Todd. He's carefully not looking around or anything, so we can't tell it's him. Now this is the greatest tragedy of any of our movies. All the shots of Lee right here were done, almost the first thing we shot in this thing, at Nanda's house. A great dolly around her kind of shot, and she did a great job, had her lines memorized. It all got erased. And what you see here is the very, very last thing we did. It was after the whole warehouse things were done, and we had to get these Lee shots on the phone done somehow. Poor thing, we were all exhausted, and, you know, didn't want to do this, but we absolutely had to do it. And she did such a much better job. She had much more time on her to rehearse and so on. And this was just real unfortunate. I feel bad about it to this day, and not just because she's my wife either. It's a tragedy. This whole scene is so cheeseball. I mean, especially the footage of Tom. It just looks like some horribly low-budget cheeseball thing from the 80s or something, 70s even. It's just awful. I don't know why the rest of it doesn't look so bad. I guess because he's just there against white. I actually cut this together quite a bit better in the new version. I spent a lot of time really figuring out how can this be better. But the whole thing is kind of set up, you know, as if you're supposed to know who these people are and the whole thing, but there's no backstory. There was such an undeveloped story and characters. I mean, the whole thing about the Tom and Kay characters have broken up. Why he'd be looking at the back of their lovey picture, I don't know. But that's how we did it. We did this rack focus, so it's kind of like, oh, I'm thinking about my girlfriend. I'm so bummed out. Crazy Brad, doing a good job as whatever he is, guard here. Kind of a major continuity error because, you know, how does Tom and all that get in here with his supposed guard sitting outside? I guess he left. He never appears in the film again. We were going to do a quick shot of Tom just knocking him out when he comes in later. The Depeche Mode music here, I took this out. I took out all the sort of rock music out of here. I just didn't think it was appropriate for such a downer of a story. I mean, the guy just got blown away and we're goofing around, and especially, it just kills me. The light tone of this movie with the whole thing about you've been kidnapped by some people. You just saw your hairdresser blown away and you got blood all over the place. And there's a scene where they're going, man, I had a date tonight and this sucks. When can we go home? It's unbelievable. I would never do anything like this again. You know, it's someone's life. It just bothers me the goofiness of this whole thing. I can't imagine writing a story like this. Todd, of course, here doing the best he can with lines he read for the first time in his life, moments before shooting it. He was very good at memorizing things very quickly, but very nervous, very uptight. And he just blows me away at how good he got in Specimen and Arizona Smith, compared to how he is here with his very awkward, goofy lines. This is the scene that completely was sliced off my new version, and for good reason. I had a date tonight. This place is so dirty, blah, blah, blah. Can you imagine acting this way when you've been kidnapped and you've witnessed something so horrific? Incredibly bad scene. All gone.
Shut up! What the hell's going on here? I thought you took care of everything.
Don't worry, I did.
That's funny. And the funny thing is right there, he closed the door there. There was no door there. He just completely did it fake. I mean, one of my favorite shots right here is this wonderful pan point of view thing of them in the background. I don't know how I ever coordinated that. And the amazing part is this garage, which was next door to Roger's office, it was part of his job, Saks. It was tiny, no bigger than an average living room, but I don't know how I made it look so big. I guess for each reverse, we were on opposite sides shooting the other way, and it looks so much bigger than it is in person. Oh, it's amazing. Another sequence I'm pretty much proud of, I liked it, is when Lloyd knocks the crap out of Tom here. Real fast, crazy editing. Boom. I really like that. The trouble is, it kind of ruin the effect landing up against a mattress like that. That must be the same gun from Escapee. I never realized it. And there's a famous Uzi which shows up many a time, rack focus. You can see the tip of it. It's a squirt gun. You can see there's no barrel. It's solid plastic. Pete, right here, pulled Lloyd back. You can see the rope if you look, right, for a split second there. Lloyd, really, he was difficult, definitely on this movie, really difficult. And I think Pete very much enjoyed pulling very hard in that clip right there. He just really, he wants to do a good job, but he was so frustrating. Here's a little thing that got completely ruined. Notice how the lighting here changes. Boom, where's the shadows? They're gone. Ruined that whole shot. I always had to smash something that didn't work, so Andy had this radio that didn't work, so I thought, I'll smash it in the movie. So I don't know why I've always had to do that. Great shot here, kind of behind Tom and approaching behind his shoulder over to Todd. Great shot. All this sequence was shot bizarrely out of order. Lee doing a great job, I thought. Gritting her teeth, the whole thing. She was really good at this.
Give me the key.
Michelle, put down the gun.
One more step, Bo, and you're dead.
Give me the gun, Michelle.
Now here's me and Pete, me with my Don Johnson kind of Miami Vice attitude. I thought I was Mr. Blonde, Mr. Cool. There's a light right there, right next to Tom. Pete caught a lot of flack over the years for this shaking gun thing. Shaking a gun in someone's face is real good. But I didn't want to do the stupid line. I told him to do the line. I didn't want to read anyone's rights. I love this shot here, me taking Lee out. And kind of reminds me of about 7 years later. I took her to the altar in a similar fashion. Now, here's the thing I was talking about. I absolutely hate the way this thing ends on a cutesy note. And it's funny. Oh my God, what happened? Sorry. And especially the music is goofy. Now, what Kay's gone through, the character, is pretty devastating. Her sister, her own flesh and blood, did but the worst thing she could do to her. It's been barely 6 hours since she witnessed a murder right in front of her friend, her hairdresser. And, people got shot and killed, and we've got this cutesy, stupid ending. So I took the new version and put some real, much darker, much more bummer kind of downer kind of music, which it is. It's not a happy ending. It's a sad ending, and I felt it was so inappropriate. Well, I didn't then, but I do years later. I'm like, how could I have made this kind of thing? I'm such a different person now, I suppose. I don't know, because it seems so insensitive to have an ending like this with this club dance music going on. It was my idea to use at the time. That's what amazes me. I could never do something like this today. Never. So this was the first movie I re-edited. I was absolutely compelled to have a little bit of sensitivity in the subject matter. As goofy as it is, I don't care. The fact is, it's like I said before, it's someone's life we're talking about. And I treated it so lightly. We all did. So the ending has this John Carpenter, very dark, low-key piece at the end. And doesn't have the gunshot goes off, but then we cut, and we don't do the whole thing with, oops, sorry guys, and let's just go home and everything's hunky-dory. Stupid. And also we also shot the entire hair salon scene once, and shot all day. Didn't check the tape or anything. My father and his family was there. Homer was there for his couple shots he did, and none of it came out. I gave him credit here for being there, but they were not in the movie because none of the footage came out. We shot all day long, and I was devastated. So this was the hardest movie. It's probably the worst movie outside of Bloodline that I've ever made. Absolute nightmare. Would never want to do it again. Nothing but rotten luck on this entire movie. And that's it for Anonymity. Take care.